worked out. Never used that. That was pretty cool. I didn't know what I was doing with that.
You did it. It looked great.
I was just experimenting. Like, I guess this will work.
Woo! It's all you.
So today, I'm with my friend Ruhi Zandra Quinn. Yay!
Thank you for welcoming me.
I'm so happy to have you on. I've been trying to get you back on for a while, but we could never somehow get everything scheduled out correctly. So now we're together again. Yay. So today I have a lot of questions.
I know half the time we talk and you're like, here I go. I'm starting to ask questions.
Yeah, that's how this came about, because we were talking on the phone yesterday. Then I was like, wait a minute, I got questions. Let me interview her. So Ruhi, I've been knowing Ruhi for a long time. We started together in a group called Real Women, which made independent videos. And we also were at Austin Community Access Station. Ruhi was teaching classes there. I think that's how I met Ruhi. She was teaching a class, and then she invited me to join Real Women. And from there, we just ended up staying friends. And people don't know this, but the first South by Southwest orientation video was shot by Ruhi and myself. So
That's right.
we have history with South by Southwest. We actually did that together, but people don't know that. There's people who weren't even born when we shot that.
What was that? The 90s?
That was the 90s. That was the 90s. We shot that in the 90s. There people weren't even born yet when we shot that thing.
That's right. It's archival now.
It is. People, I mean, this was before South by Southwest blew up, right?
Right. It was really early on, and it was back when they only had a film festival, I think. And now, it is what it is today from everybody's efforts. All that multimedia, and you've got the writing side, and you've got the design side, and everything going on. So pretty impressive evolution.
Right. So I'm going to open it up. Ruhi, you have lived in many different countries. So let's talk about some of the countries you lived in.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Where I've actually lived and spent a long period of time is either in Brazil or China. And I've been to probably almost over 20 countries now, as far as just learning about what people are doing, cultural arts, looking at different social and economic development projects. I'm not a very good tourist. I'm probably the worst. I'm much better at something called slow travel. And that's really where you just pick one little spot. It can be anywhere in the world. It can be down 2 hours away from where you currently live. And you just decide to spend a little extra time. It's not about just going to see a location or take a photo in front of something, but you actually step into that and you choose one or two things instead of the 5 or 6 things that are available. And you just take a deep dive, whether it's a museum or maybe it could be a tech fair, it could be a farm, it could be whatever someone's interest is that you spend more time there instead of trying to do everything. And we all know that feeling, right? When you're traveling, you just want to take it all in as much as possible. But this is the opposite side. You take it in a different way. You meet local people. You might check out the culture. You might even just decide to spend time on your own, maybe with 1 or 2 people, and just keep it really chill and slow, and don't book a tour, but actually just do your own thing. Take out the map like you did in the old days, mark where you want to go, and then take that walk together. Some people are on a low budget, so they do things that are free, and other people are on a little bit better budget and they can buy those tickets and see those venues. Or some folks just do a combination of things. So I love slow travel. I think it's one of the things that people enjoy and can learn something and get that takeaway. You probably know a lot about that because you end up going somewhere, but because you're a filmmaker also, you might take a moment to meet someone, interview someone. I've seen that on your channel where you just come across someone and you're like, oh my gosh, you ask permission, can we do a little something together? Can I interview you? And then they open up, right? They open up their world to you. And so that to me is a beautiful thing. But as far as like living, just 2 countries in general, I would say where I actually had a place, where I was working there, where I made friends. When I go back, I have people that I go see, that type of thing. Long-term friendships for sure.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you about Haiti because you went to Haiti. And
Yeah.
I told Ruhi, don't you go to Haiti. I'm going to see you on TV with your hands up.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I did not want Ruhi going to Haiti. I was like, why is this girl going to Haiti? So let's talk a little bit about that. Why did you go to Haiti, Ruhi?
It's bringing up some memories for me too. It was an interesting time in my life because I was doing some documentary work, and everything I've done is very small scale, but it's purposeful, and it means a lot when you're doing it, and it means a lot to the people that you're doing it with. And that's kind of like my life's goal, is whenever I take something on, I want it to make a difference for the folks that are actually part of it. Doesn't matter if it's just a one-on-one project like we've done before, or a commercial project where everybody's like on the clock and getting paid, and like it's a 60-day shoot or something like that. I'm in it to explore art and explore expression. So for this particular purpose, it happened to be while I was living in China, and an organization had a need to have a filmmaker person. Didn't matter where they were from or how they did their work. It was just somebody who was willing to go to project sites in these distant locations, and they needed someone to take the lead. Help them get the camera equipment together. They had a donor. They had somebody who donated their miles, so the airfares were taken care of. And then they had a small budget where, say you needed to get a visa, or you needed to get a particular shot, or you needed to set up something so that you could stay the night somewhere, whether it was like a hostel or some other venue. They had a little budget they could work with. And so I raised my hand, as I often do, in situations where nobody else is there and I'm the last one standing. That's literally a theme of my entire life. I have every situation almost where I enjoyed it the most, where someone was like, nobody else wants to do this, and I'm glad you're here. And at the time, it was a really good fit for me because I was in between projects. I had my company in Xi'an, China. It was a small consulting firm. And that's something that I had been a part of since its founding, but I wasn't there in the beginning. And when they all decided to move on, I was the last one standing once again. They said, "Do you want to take this on?" I said, sure, not knowing a thing about business in another country, not knowing anything about what was going to happen. I just thought, this sounds amazing, like a creative opportunity. Fast forward a few years, this organization popped up. I went to Hong Kong to buy the equipment as I was leaving. So I had booked the travel through the Miles program, and Hong Kong had the best prices. And so I said, let's buy there. And prior to that, I had just got connected with, at that time, just a business contact, my husband, Mark. And we met there with a couple other friends and went around the camera store to sort of see what would be best. I was leaving in a few days. I was staying in Macau. He was moving to the United States. So it was like an opportunity to just kind of get things done. He moved on. Long story short, the 4th time I saw him, I married him. So I met him in February of 2009, and I married him.
Her husband, Mark.
That's right. And I married him in September. So I'm giving that context because the reason we went to Haiti is because I was on that project while I had met him, and we had asked our parents permission to get married. and everything was moving, and I was going to these different countries, and he was doing his thing and I was doing my thing. And we decided that we wanted to get married on September 9th, but the Haiti trip was going to happen just after that. So we got married. The next day we flew to Washington and caught our flight to Haiti. And we went together, and he ended up being the volunteer photographer because that's something he's interested in. And I was on that project to do the videography and the interviews. And so from there, it was literally like from one country to the next overnight into, we had a host family that let us stay there that was part of the organization locally. And the next morning we had a small breakfast, and they told us, if you've never been to Haiti before, you actually are in for some pleasant surprises because it's such a beautiful country. There's so much wildlife and flowers and trees and nature. It's absolutely gorgeous, and the people are extremely friendly and always curious about you. Now, my husband knew at the time, he was my fiance, but he had started to learn Haitian Creole because he loves learning languages. He learned so much Haitian Creole that when we got there, they were like, "Are you moving here?" Because no one learns Haitian Creole unless you're actually going to go live in Haiti. Like it's just not a language that's on a lot of people's top of mind unless they're going to be communicating with people that's their first language. And by the way, to say hello, it's "ça passe." I still remember that. And then usually people say "nable" to reply. And so the reason we went is because we were these guests of the organizations that work in education for primary school, middle school, and high school. And we were there to interview someone who had opened up their home to the young people that were living outside. And when I say that, I mean, we all know from maybe our own reading, our own research, or watching the news that Haiti's experienced something called dehumanization. And these are not my own words, but when we interviewed those high-level educational professionals there, they identified it over and over and over again. One of the reasons that Haiti has taken a downturn, among many, is because of dehumanization. It's because they themselves and also people around the world don't see the people as human beings. They see the people as commodity, as receiving what's left over in the world. I mean, we would go into the grocery store, and on the shelf is all the brands that you never see in any store, what they call in the global north. You just see what's left over. So they make a lot of products and nobody wanted them. So they send them to these other countries to put on the shelves. And they're kind of similar, like they look like test market materials. They sort of have like the right colors and they kind of have a cute name, but it's no brand you've ever seen, right? It's all the things that's just nobody wanted it. So they send it to places. Now, I'm not making this up. These are not my own observations. This is what was explained to me by a local guide who had said, like, you're going to see a lot of things and just wanted to let you know that this is normal. The other thing you're going to see is a high level of entrepreneurism. People are so creative. You know, they're out there doing their local arts. They're out there cooking. They're out there creating new recipes, out there growing. They're out there making these beautiful like crafts of flowers, and they sell to each other. You know, that's who their market is primarily. They had at the time, this was 2009, so they had a lot of visitors. This was prior to the large earthquake they experienced, so this was a few months before. And it was kind of like eye-opening for both Mark and I, because this was our first trip together, but it was also the first time I got to see Mark in a kind of like what I would say like an opportunity for service. And then for me, he got to see me doing what I do creatively and how I interact with people. And it was the best honeymoon on the face of the planet because we actually were able to understand each other more deeply through this space of working together and serving together. And it allowed us to kind of be really patient with one another. And one thing he remarked, it was kind of amazing. He's like, you have a fortitude that I have never seen. Like your willingness to just be patient and to just ask questions and listen. And sometimes just to turn the camera off because it's not about the camera. It's about connecting with people. And you know this from your filmmaking experience. a lot of that work happens when you're off camera. So
Mm-hmm.
when we went there, we kind of went with the mindset we were only going to be there for a few weeks, and so we knew we have to be present every day and sort of be able to open up to whoever is around us when we're getting these shots. It a lot of times there were bandits in the countryside. We also had some friends with us that had fled from the northern part of the country to the south because of the different things that were happening in their area. You see that on the news now. There's people that are overtaking others in like very violent ways sometimes. But at the same time, you see a lot of beauty and the way that the people are so in love with the education of their children and make every effort to educate all children. It's kind of beyond belief, right? So this one family had opened up they had this tiny little garage, this little driveway, and there were these young people that had fled and they weren't going to school, but they would come into the yard and then the husband would do a lesson, like a little math lesson. And then they'd come back the next day for the next lesson. And they'd come back the next day for the next lesson around the same time. Now, these folks had nowhere to be, no family around. So they had to go out and either gather recycling or make something to sell or take steps that would allow them to feed themselves, take care of each other. So coming back for the math lesson was an eye-opening experience for this couple. And they realized maybe we should just open up a little school in our yard here. Like, let them come back, let them have a meal, let them find a place for just a couple of hours per day that they can feel like they're doing something that is bringing them closer to the next phase of their life, right? So these were young kids. They were probably middle school age, 11, 12, 13. So I'm not talking about, these are kids who had fled and lost where they were as far as where their family was and how they could find one another. And so these were challenging times, but they also were just brilliant minds because they had an opportunity to either have homeschooling or home training, or they had an opportunity to go to another school somewhere at some point. So they just wanted to continue. That's all they said. I want to go to school. I want to go to school. I want to go to school. And in most countries in the world, it's tuition based, right? Mm-hmm. So you pay a little tuition, you have a uniform, you get some school supplies, and even the most simple space, the tuition is for the teachers, right? Because the teachers need a little salary to make that commitment. And what they decided to do was, when they opened this small school in their yard, they had, within about 2 weeks, they had about 20 students come in every day around that age to have a meal, to go to school. They learned reading, writing, arithmetic, creativity, and then they would come back the next day. And what they found was, once they had this stable element in their life, they were able to do just about anything else. You know, like once you have this space where you're feeling encouraged and loved, all of a sudden, all of the difficulties around you have a background noise to it instead of a foreground noise to it, right? So when we interviewed, with permission, these young ones and also these school teachers who decided to be there for them, they realized it was going to be a long haul. By the time we got to them, they'd already been doing this for about 8 or 9 years. So the young ones that were educated in their yard came back to be teachers to those ones that needed help, that were coming from the north or the west at that time. And so they gave back in that way. They already had their job, they had maybe had a family, but they found a home there, you know, and so they wanted to teach the next generation. And they realized, when we went out to the countryside and we saw a small school, I mean, really imagine a 1 or 2 room schoolhouse built brick by families who decided we have to have a school. And the Minister of Education comes to visit, and it's like one of the proudest school spaces. They had chickens, a couple of goats. They had a program throughout the day. The families helped with providing food to each other. And when they didn't have something, they made sure that they got the word out to folks that could contribute. And that was the relationship with the nonprofits, right? So the nonprofits allowed the local organizations to unfold in their own natural way, to unfold with their own passion, curriculum. It wasn't like a group coming in and saying, okay, now you got to do this to get this money. It wasn't like that at all. Essentially, they said, what's your plan and how can we help? Mm-hmm. And they would give them the plan. They'd say, okay, here's the funds that you had asked for to the best of our ability. And we look forward to hearing about your progress. So they were very like organic and natural with the organizations and let them use their own methods and their own thoughts and their own reflections to educate their own people. So going to Haiti was as natural for me. Why would I go? It's like, well, among all the countries we had to go to, this is one that I might not have ever had a chance to visit for any reason, right? I'm trying to think back in my history, like, was it on my radar? So to have it come through this opportunity of doing these small documentaries and these vignettes, it was so heartwarming to me because it was like,
is there a way that people can see these short documentaries that you did? Is there a site?
Sure. I can give you the links. They're really, really short. They're just little vignettes. And I can give you the links for those. We can put them in the, what's that little box called at the bottom?
Description box.
Everything has a name. Everything has a name.
Yeah, I will. When I get off the air, I'll get all the information from you, and I'll put those links in the description box. So besides Haiti, so you lived in China.
Yeah.
You went to Haiti. You went to Brazil. Well, you were doing short documentaries in Brazil also?
I did. The first time I went to Brazil was actually because my family had decided to live and work overseas, and they wanted to be of service somewhere. And so they did a lot of research around the world to sort of see like where the need is, where could they fit, is there something they can do? And they decided to sell their business at the time. This was in the 80s. That's how old I am, guys.
I'm older than you, but I'm going to be quiet on that. Go ahead.
Shh. You'll always be younger than me at heart, for sure. So that was back in the 80s. And we basically, I remember I was in elementary school, and every year all my friends were like, are you moving this year? I said, I think so. And then we wouldn't move. And are you moving this year? Because it had been a long-term plan for my family for a long time. And then we ended up in Brazil for lots of reasons. And just so happened that there was an organization there called ADCAM, which is essentially working with the rural communities as well as the city. And they, at the time, they had an orphanage, a school, and a small tech operation out on the other side of the river. So this is in Manaus, it's at the state of Amazonas, which is basically the Amazon region. So it's a northern part of Brazil. And I was probably, was I 12 or 13 or something like that in those years? And so the first time I visited, this was the first time living outside of the US, learning a language. By the way, anyone can learn any language. I'm not one of those people that's like, language is hard. Because when you go that route, it doesn't make sense because we all learn language when we're a child. Everybody learns language. And so you can learn any language, especially if you're immersed in it. So it just takes a little time for your brain to pick up on what do these things mean? How do they make sense? So within about 4 or 5 months, my sister and I were both speaking Portuguese, like Brazilian Portuguese. And we had gone to school. We couldn't understand a thing. And then suddenly, just like that, we started talking. And to this day, sometimes we say things in Portuguese to each other because it makes more sense. It's faster. It's easier to understand because the situation is like, oh, that's this, Like there's this Brazilian word. It's hard to translate. It's saudade, which just, if I could describe it, it means that you are missing a thing or a person or a place or an experience you're being reminded of now, right? So it's not nostalgia. It's not like, oh, I just miss you. It has like several other layers to it. It's mixed in with memory, but it's also mixed in with how I feel today. Like that love has grown, So when you say the word saudade to somebody, it's like all encompassing. And so that was just really the beginning of just deciding, like in my own heart and mind, this is one of the ways that I can learn and be in the world is by taking opportunities to live in other places or just travel in general and not by means of just coming to take a look, but actually immersing myself and being part of the community that I'm living in. And I think a lot of people do that in the world. And it's kind of exciting to hear their stories too. And those friendships are still there today, right? People that I met when I was a kid, we still keep in touch. We still know one another. You know, back in the age of pen pal, I used to have a pen pal. Did you ever have a pen pal, Janine?
Pen pal, yeah. I guess we were pen pals. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the thing. We just wrote letters to each other.
Right.
You know? And we got excited about hearing about somebody from somewhere else, what they're up to, maybe a photo or two, or just a story, how they're doing at school, what's going on with your family. I mean, that's where it's at, right? Those are all the things that make us human beings. We're all interested in those things. By the way, I love your background. It's a big heart. Dun, 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 dun.
It's up there. I know some people would think it's not professional, but it's up there. But it's my world. It's my world. So
it changes. I've seen a lot of your videos, and like you have different backgrounds for different themes. I know you keep it fresh.
So I'm gonna go back to your traveling. So what I'm hearing is you. So you. It seems like you choose your travels based on service. Is that a correct assumption, or am I wrong?
I think sometimes things just happen, you know, organically. Like maybe I'm in between projects and there's some time open and I've been thinking about a place. But I also married someone who enjoys thinking about where to go. Like we don't always go everywhere he's thought about. Okay, because that man is researching on the daily. Where is this little alleyway? Where is this little, you know, where is this big city? Where is that small town? Where can I go do this? Where can I go do that? And it's just curiosity because, you know, I think part of it was his father's influence being like back in the day, they used to have something called flight stewards who took care of like your visa when you arrive somewhere. They actually would escort you off the plane and take you into customs, and they would get you through customs, and then you would go through. So he did that for years. Nowadays, it's just, you know, those folks stay on the plane and they let you do it by yourself. So there was a lot of like preparation on the cultural competence side, you know, back in the day, like get ready to go somewhere. You might want to learn some customs. You may want to learn a little of the language. You might like to look at a map or two. You know, sometimes people go on trips now and they do a little bit of research, but they're literally only looking at the one place they're going to go, or the two places they're going to go, or does the hotel or the accommodations have the amenities they're looking for? And then they go enjoy the food, for example, and then they go home because that's all the time they have, right? They just only have that weekend, or maybe they have that couple of weeks off work and they just want time to rest. But a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I need a vacation from my vacation because they're really tired when they come home. And so, yeah, I try to work in something where I'm able to take in the culture, even if I'm just listening or I'm enjoying there's a real beautiful, I haven't done this yet because I haven't been in Austin as much as I wanted to be, but there's the Black Austin tours. I definitely want to do that when I come through again. So, you know, a young man who's looking at his life, his ability, his education, his capacity to take people around to significant locations. And he gets groups of people all the time, right? Because he's about education. He's about transforming hearts. He's about letting people know what happened in my hometown, in my area, historically. You know, what is significant people? What is significant events? To me, that's where I would put my money as a person traveling. I would look for that sort of, like you said, purposeful activity, and educate my own self so that when I come back, I have a bigger picture, right? I did that with indigenous arts, for example. Or one time we were driving through New Mexico, and we didn't notice, but we're looking at the map, and there was a little restaurant with indigenous chefs, and they provided like a lunch for anybody coming through. And it was very reasonable, and the food was delicious. Like, and it was locally sourced, fantastic. It was so good that we were like, we need to spend more money here. and the price was so low. We were like, what can we do? That's where this cup comes from. I'll send you that link too. It's like, okay, well, I'll buy this cup because, you know, that's something that gives back, and they educate their young people on how to cook these dishes, and it's like giving back to that program. So yeah, I think I try to find spaces where if I'm going to spend money on something, that it has a little bit more purpose to it, hopefully a service component. I've gone places in the world where we've planted trees, for example, as part of our plan, you know, like what can we do so that when we get there, that we leave it better than we found it, right? Like it's not always going to work out that way, because it's not the mindset of a lot of places offering services right now. It could be. And some places do that, like eco spaces of any kind. Sometimes you go to a really nice hotel and you're like, wow, this is great. And then you lift up the materials that they have on it, and they're like, oh, the sheets have been woven by, you know, made from bamboo. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. You know, like I didn't know that, but these folks are trying. Everybody's trying to do a little something to make it a little more meaningful and have another layer to it, you know? And then when you plant trees, we all know when we fly around all the time, it contributes to the carbon in the air, right? So if at least we do something a little bit more, I'm not saying that gives, but when I go deep into my heart, it's like, well, don't I get something better when I learn something more about where I'm going? Don't I find my heart like uplifted by people when they share their stories and I'm listening, right? I'm the one that's like benefiting from their knowledge and their wisdom. So in terms of service, it's that kind of back and forth, you know. And again, I'm still learning. It's not perfect, but we can try. We can try to find those little, you know, byways and, you know, those museums or those ways to give back while we're living somewhere else or traveling somewhere else. And man, I'm just a huge proponent of taking in someone else's knowledge. If they're open to sharing, not everything is shareable and not everyone's going to listen. We know that. But if someone's doing something, like they're crafting something, they're making art. I remember we were in Italy recently, I would say it's last year, and there was a glassblower who was a master glassblower. He just came out of the woodwork. He was just there. We didn't know who was who. He was in a crowd of maybe 20 people, and I thought he was on the tour. He was so humble. He was just in the crowd. And then he did this amazing introduction of his work and this amazing introduction of his life. And there he was. He came right out of the crowd. And then he proceeded within like maybe 2 minutes to craft a small piece of glass. And it was just amazing to watch it appear out of nowhere, right? It just came into being right in front of our eyes. And it looked like, my God, he's been doing this his whole life, right? Because he was apprenticed and then he became a master crafter in this art form. And he told stories of how his grandfather had taught him. And I was like, this is free? I couldn't believe it. But he was so happy to share with so many people that was not what it's about. If you're interested in buying the glass, that's fine. If you like to take something home, please do. But more importantly, get this message, right? Intergenerational education is important. Spending time doing something you love is important. Like he had all these little, you know, bits and pieces of wisdom that we could all take home in our hearts. And if I could tell you the whole story, it would be easy for me to do step by step, you know, and not narrow it down so small, but like it had such an impact on my heart, you know. It's one of the best things that happened in Italy.
I might change this title. Ruhi Zandra Heart Travel. Something like that. I don't know. And I might have to and put some, you know, to get more people to watch. Because this is a really good interview, and I want more people to watch this.
Well, you inspire me. You know that because you're always thinking about how something can make another person take a beat, you know? Like remember when you were singing with that guy? You just
Oh
randomly
yeah.
walking around and you're like, okay, let's do an opera. What? You know, like let's just doesn't matter. We didn't practice. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we
Nobody
just
knows
did it
nothing.
right on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I love. It's like it's okay to do that when you recognize it. Like I don't know, like my husband has a creative side. I think everyone has a creative side, but like sometimes he talks really tech, like with other
Mhm.
people. And it looks like two robots just talk
Mhm.
something I don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And they look really excited, but then they're really quiet about it. Like their face has no expression on it, but I know they're enjoying it because they understand one another, you know?
Mhm.
And I'm like, see, that's also a kind of sharing. You know,
Mhm.
that's also kind of creativity. And a lot of people don't see it that way, you
Mhm.
know? And when I watch them, I'm like, God. But then I like lean in a little bit and I see their expression. They understand each other. The eyebrows is moving, smiles, kind of giggling because they know what
Mhm.
each other's talking about.
Mhm.
And I find that really sweet. I find that like that's how they connect. They just made friends, you
Mhm.
know? To me, that's okay. That's an art form.
Girl, I guess, 'cause I'm married to a robot nerd.
Do you remember when I shut the door? Did he hear you? He
Girl.
said, "Come in there." No, but you know when they met. Remember when they met for the first time?
Mhm.
They were like, "Oh, I see you." I
We
know
were
what
both
it's
talking that
about.
stuff, and I was like, "Ugh."
And that's okay. Sometimes that's the introverted heart, you know? Like just
Mhm.
having that one-to-one is enough. Like completely full and satisfied with just a smaller conversation, small group of people enjoying, and that's enough. That's totally enough. And even silence, like just sitting in the same space and you do your thing and I do my thing and you're out at a co-working space or in a coffee shop, but like that's normal. That's every
Mhm.
day. But
So
yeah, I love all the things you do, Janine. I do. It's
that's
great.
so that's funny to me because I don't feel like I do anything. I'm serious. I'm totally serious. I don't really feel like I do anything.
Girl, you have 1,500 people that think different. They're watching you, learning together with you.
I'm serious. Like I told you, on a day to day, my life is pretty boring. On a day to day, pretty much is. I
How do
go.
you define boring though? What's that mean?
I'm not really around people like I would like to
Mm,
be. Because I'm a people person, and
okay.
then I go walking, which is good because that's very calming, and yeah, and I'm taking a class online, a voiceover class online.
Oh, that's
But
awesome. I love that.
yeah, yeah, but the thing of it is I'm not interacting with people, and that bothers me as a person who really likes people. I'm kind of shut off, and I'm trying to get out more and not be so closed off. But we're not talking about me. We're talking about you.
Whoops. All right, all right.
Let's stop being distracted.
Get back
Being
on track.
distracted and get back to you because this ain't this it, if you want to talk about me, have me on your channel and
Okay.
interview me. But when you on my channel, I'm interviewing you, not the opposite, not the other way around, not the other way around. Okay.
My channel is blank right now, so you know that. Like,
Well, you need to
I've
get
had
that
a channel for
started.
so long, I can't remember when I first got one. And I've just always looked at like, oh, that's interesting, like a canvas. Like there's a lot that could happen there. But I think it's coming. I think I shared with you that like one of the things I'm thinking about and trying to shoot videos for is learning something new, like once a
Mhm.
week, even the
Mhm.
small thing, you know, and then just making really short videos about learning something new and
Well,
just
that's cool.
get in the habit. I think I mean, anyone who's a YouTuber, woo, just getting in the habit of storytelling and taking that craft to another level, or just getting out there and trying to share something. I mean, I've seen some channels with people who are like, I'm 91 years old and I've opened up my YouTube channel and I'm at assisted living and I just wanted to share some advice.
Mhm.
And it's like, wow, you guys, that's inspirational to me, where somebody is trying something new for the first time and never been online and they're just
Mhm.
going for it. I think that's beautiful. Yeah.
So, what are you up to now, Ruhi? What's going on with you now? What are you doing?
Well, most recently, I've been getting into things like making more art, and in the level of, so there's something called art therapy, but that's not where I'm headed with it. Um, I'm more interested in expressive arts and working with people to express their thoughts through art. And so I've been taking some courses on that. And now I'm actually practicing with a few friends just to sort of see like, what do we talk about when we use art as a modality? And it's not just conversation, but it's actually me listening and allowing the other person. It could be a young person, somebody in high school, somebody who's a young professional, somebody who's going through a transition of some kind. Maybe they've like decided, okay, I'm going to go back and get a master's and I'm 75. Now what? you know, like using the art to sort of work through any questions people are having and allowing them to sort of see themselves in the light that they really are. And so they might have these ideas or maybe some obstacles they've created for themselves. And then they do the art. And because it's a non-judgmental space, they're able to hear themselves think. They're able to use their hands or other tools to create something. So it's not about the art itself. It's about using art to understand oneself. And we do that all the time as human beings. We do. We just don't recognize it that way. Like we'll
Mhm.
create something. We might cook a dish and in our heart and mind, we're working through something, right? We're like, okay, I'm going to make this food. Here's the recipe. Here's what I add. But it's also attached to memories, right? It's attached to feelings. It's attached to understanding one another. So that's kind of where I'm headed. I'm also interested in ethnographies. So one of the things I hope to do in the future is continue studying around ethnography, and most importantly, what happens when the first person account becomes the the material that social anthropologists use to write their papers.
Mhm.
So in the past and even now, the secondhand account or the observation of the anthropologist becomes the database, right? So I'm just observing someone from afar and I'm in their family and I'm around their area and I'm collecting information and stories, but then I formulate my own analysis. What does it mean? That's fine. We can do that. But it's more important to allow that person to see themselves, to share the story they want to share their culture in the way they wish, and then allow them to do the analysis and then publish the paper, in my view. And I'm
Mhm.
not exactly clear where that intersection is. I need to do a little more reading, and I have a long reading list from some of the master's programs that I've been looking at. But I think it's possible to just get over that idea that in order for something to be valuable, you have to be observed, right? It's okay if it's the first person account. It's more on the level of like autobiography as
Mhm.
opposed to biography. But what that does is it allows people to see for themselves how valuable their stories are, and
Mhm.
not through the lens of someone else. We get to observe and hear and listen, but not analyze, not break
Mhm.
it down, not try to put a culture or a people through a process. If they want to go through a process and express those ideas, they can create their own process. How you see us is how we show you how you see us,
Mhm.
right? And not how I see you. And now I'm going to publish a paper about how I see you,
Right.
right? So that's something I'm interested in. And then the third thing, most recently, is looking at slow travel and what that means as a lifestyle. You know, if people are able to, if more folks than ever are working remotely. I did a little bit of research and I'm nowhere near where it needs to be. But a lot of the articles I've come up with is Americans are very interested in food. Like when they go somewhere, they want to eat food. Like for whatever reason, every country kind of has their top tier, like why they go to a place. And I think for a lot of human beings, it's similar. Like, oh, I'd like to taste something local, taste a little new flavors, try something I haven't tried before. And I thought that was fascinating to me because, yes, food is a big part of travel because you have to eat, but it's people that make it, you know? So, what is the history of that dish? How did it come about? Where are these like ingredients from? That's more interesting to me than actually seeing the final plate. Like, even if I don't taste it, I'm okay. Some people are on the other side of that. Like once they see that process, someone's cooking for them, they're like, not eating it would just be like, oh no, I gotta get out of here. Like, I'm so mad I didn't get to taste. But if I just saw something being created in front of me, I don't need to taste it. I don't need to know what it tastes like to see how I feel about it. And I had that experience while we were traveling in Japan. We went to this Michelin star. It's called onigiri. It's just a simple snack item. Sometimes in the form of a rice ball, sometimes in a triangle, sometimes with seaweed around it, sometimes a small bit of fish or meat or vegetable or pickle in between. And it was this grandmother figure who had maybe 1, 2, 3, I would say 4 tabletops and one long piece of wood in front of her cooking area where you could stand. And they would only admit 3 to 5 tabletops seating at a time. It was probably one of the most flavorful, nutritious things I've ever eaten. And the way that she cooked her rice and where she sourced her rice and the guy who was in charge of getting her rice was the guy for 60 years. Like he's the farmer that makes that specific rice, that brings that rice to her in a way that she can use it. And he was there just enjoying the scenery, just enjoying like, okay, people are eating rice, you know? And she was making her onigiri and then she would just watch like very quietly. But they do all their prep earlier in the day. So we came a little to watch how this process looked. And to me, that was fascinating. Like how much intention, how much the level of commitment, right? To nothing fast. Everything like takes its time, not slow, just somewhere in the middle. And I can tell you right now, if I had not tasted it, I would be completely satisfied because it was so beautiful just to watch the art form of it. And then my husband's like, we're here, we got to taste it. You know, like it's so part of his childhood being half Japanese and knowing these flavors well, you know, in his background. And he said he's never tasted it any better. Like it's just delicious. And it wasn't high priced and it wasn't out of like the realm of anybody coming off the street and buying a negative snack. But it is a Michelin star restaurant. So to me, those are special moments where you get to see the maker, see the process, and be satisfied with it wherever you are in that process. You know, same thing happened in many other locations in my life where just being a witness to how something is made is more important to me, or how something is done is more important to me than the result. But that makes me a process-oriented person. Some people are results-oriented, and that's totally fine. They're looking for that experience where, yes, the process is nice, but like what happens at the end? Tell me the end. I need to know the end. You know, it's the same with movies or books or storytelling. I'm like, if someone stopped in the middle of telling a story, I'd be okay. That's where they want to stop.
Okay.
but other people would be like, tell me the end. I've been here for hours. I would be fine with it, and other people would lose their mind. I kind of wove stories into travel, into that's my style. You know me. I go all over the place, Janine. Be my guide. Be my guide.
Do you okay, this is something that okay. Has anybody, because you have a lot of interests, similar to me.
True.
I have a lot of interests. We both have a lot of interests. So do you feel that you have too many interests at sometimes or and you don't complete your task,
Hmm.
your goal?
Almost all the time. Yeah, but I don't almost every day. Oh my God.
So you and I, we like, we're here.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. All day, 24/7. I am like, what was I doing? How did I get here? Oh, look at that. Like, and I think it's because I have a lot of interests, but I also think there's something I want to, at least for me, I want to get into a little bit more. I'm going to use the word discipline because it's not in the form of like everything has to be regimented like
Mhm,
that. And some things will just never be done. It's not about being done. It's about seeing what it looks like, right?
mhm,
Um, but when I want to get into the be done mode, and I can think of at least 4 or 5 projects off the top of my head that would be
mhm,
so cool, you know.
mhm,
And I would love to continue the collaborations that I've had with people over the years on those specific projects. And we did do certain things, and we met certain milestones. But when it came to me actually like closing it off and wrapping it up with a little bow on top, I
mhm,
was like, "Oh, but there's so much more." And they're like, "I think we're done."
mhm.
But it was hard for me to get to the done. And
And
I
why do
think
you
that's
and
I
why do
want to
you
treat
think
myself on that.
that is?
Gosh, let me just ask the little Ruhi in my mind. Hold on. The one that's like the 6 or 7 year old that we grew up with, our own
Mhm.
self. Hmm. What is not being done?
What is stopping?
Oh,
I'm
I
gonna get
got
it.
it.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
got
Go
it.
ahead.
It for me, it's because I am concerned with losing that relationship
Mm,
for letting go. Yeah. So people I collaborate with, sometimes I work on my own stuff. Um, I feel like being done means that somehow the relationship is shifted.
mhm,
I don't know how to go much deeper than that, but it just feels like being done with a thing means that it's over, like finished. And it
mhm,
doesn't have to be so finite. And no one ever said that. No one ever said, okay, we're done and that's over. Like it's just a story in my mind or some
mhm,
impact that's been made on me as a young person that if I get to the point of done, then somehow those relationships have shifted.
mhm.
So that might not be the best topic for this live stream. Because I don't actually know. I don't actually know, but I want to explore that. I do definitely want to become somebody who feels good about let's finish. Let's have it set, or let's exhibit it, or let's play it out in a film festival, or
Mhm,
let's share it with a community of people. It doesn't have to be public, right? So I've gotten to a lot of those places where the final work is shown to groups of people, or the final work is shown at a venue, or the
mhm,
final work, and it's so filled with like such mixed feelings in my heart. I don't know how to feel about it. Maybe I just need to be okay with it, right? As a maker, as somebody who's interested in telling stories, as somebody who hopes that what we talk about will elevate our hearts, that all we can do is put it out there.
mm,
Do it well as we can, and then just do the next one, right?
mm.
So I don't know what you think about that. I don't know. You seem to get a lot of stuff done. That's what I noticed.
Oh, no, no.
Oh no, no.
I do not. I do not. I still have a book that's not done.
But you're working on it when you
I
can.
haven't worked on it in about 2 months,
Okay.
and then I have a, documentary film with short video that I'm still working on, but I'm gonna finish that by the end of June for sure. So no, I mean I just got the comment uh 2 days ago that I start stuff without finishing stuff that I already have going on.
Ah, okay.
Just really had that serious conversation. Like now, oh, wait a minute, what about you? Now you're moving on to something else, but you haven't finished this and this.
Yeah, we might be twins because I hear that too. It's like either from my own head or from people around me. It's like, oh, I was, and sometimes it's just curiosity. It's like, oh, you had that. Oh, tell me more about the thing you did because I wasn't caught up on it. I was like, oh yeah, that thing. Yeah, that thing's over there now. And they're like, tell me about this thing that you did because they're curious, not like trying to point things out, but they're like, oh no, that's over there
No,
now.
my stuff. No, that's nice that you have people like that because my people like it's some finger pointing going on. It's like, wait a minute, what you doing this, and this? Now you saying you're gonna do this? Why don't you finish these two things before you start this? You never finish anything.
That person sounds like a producer, a creative heart for sure.
No, that was my therapist getting in my butt 2 days ago. That was
Okay. Okay. So it's a professional opinion.
yeah, that was my therapist.
With love, with love.
And I'm like, you, and I almost said, shut up, you're not a creative.
I think the name of this video is going to be The Artist's Heart. That's what it's going to be. If
It's
you're
gonna
going
be
to change
what?
it, The Artist's Heart.
Maybe it should be because I was like, she don't, it's like, why is she telling me what to do with my craft? She need to stick to,
Oh
she don't need to. I was like, in my mind, I didn't say it, but in my mind was like, why is she telling me what to do with my with I mean, but I pay her to tell me stuff.
Take notes. Take notes. Yeah. No.
But I was getting irate. I was like, you're not even an artist. How are you gonna tell me? How you gonna tell me what I need to be doing with my art when you're not even an artist? That's how I was feeling. I was getting defensive because I was like,
No, I hear you. I hear you. And it's true though. I think it's happening. That feeling is happening in a lot of spaces. Some of the things I do when I'm not creating is sometimes I'll go over and work at a school. And I was covering for an art teacher recently. And, with all the things that are changing and these ideas that we don't need to know history or all that or what's going on. She's like, she leaned in and she's like, I'm never going to stop teaching about history. And I was like, thank you. And she's like, I'm never going to stop teaching about human beings and how we take care of each other. I was like, thank you. And you know what her students' final project was? What? It was so fascinating. It was use any materials to depict your understanding of what it means to be a human being. This is a high school class, and they had many different chapters of history that were taught, many different ideas from different thought leaders and like social movements and change agents. And I'm like, this is an art class? You're awesome. You're awesome. Because it's not making art just to see what you can create technically, but making art on how you feel. Right. And bringing forward how you understand the world. And I was really impressed with that. Like, it just made a difference to the kids. And honestly, that was the best class I've ever covered for, because she lets them create. That they use their entire time as studio time. They use their entire time as studio time, and they're constantly talking about what they're working on with their peers. And it was mixed grades from 9 through 12. So here you had the older kids with the youngers. And the youngers weren't bothered by it, and the olders weren't bothered by it. They were working with each other on projects. It's so rare to see the grades working together. And it was just fascinating. So I said, thank you so much for what you do. She's like, I might be one of the teachers get fired because the topics that I'm bringing in are no longer allowed. according
Wow.
to, the way things are rolling out.
And
But
how do you feel
Mhm.
about the current situation? Because you substitute teach.
Right.
How does that make you feel? And uh what do you think can be done to offset all of that?
Well, I think what's amazing to me is that, especially teachers, because they've dedicated their whole lives to the subjects that they're working with, and they notice when students grow and when they learn and when they transform. And they
Mm,
do best when they have a comprehensive education that's not so narrow, right? That's not like, oh, we're only going to learn this one thing, or we're only going to talk about it this way, or we're only going to do it from this angle. They do much better when they have a bigger picture and they're allowed to consult with each other. So what I think about it is I'm in support of all the teachers who've decided to continue their curriculum as it is. Who knows what will happen in the future? But I was also substitute teaching for a history teacher, and that day the lesson was the Black Panthers.
mm,
And he's like, I'm not going to change it. I was asked to quietly sort of change how I do things, to sort of quietly take things off the walls, to sort of quietly rearrange my classroom a kind of way. And he said, what I have going works for my students, and they love it, and they learn, and they enjoy their classes, and they keep coming back, and they love the subjects, and they want to talk about these things, and they want to be open-minded, and they want to have a wholehearted education,
mhm,
So it's still very new, but I trust that the people who are professionals in this field, if they have to, they will remake the entire education system because they can, if they
mm,
have to. But if it stays the way it is, they will always design their classrooms and spaces to be open and caring, because that's what works for their classrooms. And so that's as best as I can talk about it right now, because I'm only seeing like snippets. I'm
mhm,
not in any of the meetings. I'm not seeing any documentation. I do the lesson plan as is written, So even in a chemistry class I had covered recently, they were talking about collision theory and how at the level of science, in order for something to change, the two molecules have to um, collide. There's no
mhm,
way to change it. You can't even make water without the molecules colliding. So at the level of science, if we think about these ideologies colliding, you know, there's a certain level of sadness there, but there's also a certain level of like, what happens if you change something totally? If you leave out the hydrogen molecule, you're never going to make water,
mhm,
right? If you leave out the oxygen molecule, you're never going to make water. So you can't erase a thing. You can't
mhm,
take a thing out, even at a fundamental level, right? It has to be wholehearted, it has to be whole and complete and holistic in order for it to, even at the organic level, for it to survive and grow and to be nourishing, right? We need water to survive. We're mostly water. So I'm using that as a metaphor to describe like what we're being asked to do doesn't make sense at the level of like intellect, spiritual growth, how we live in the world, how we take care of one another. And I think it's more obvious than ever how far we have to go. At the same time, more important than ever that we interlock hands and go forward together.
On
So,
that note, I'm gonna go ahead and end the broadcast because that was a good
oh
ending.
my gosh! Oh my
Woo, woo!
gosh! I learned that from you,
But stay on. I'm gonna end the stream, but stay on. Okay.
I will. Thank you for having me. It's always wonderful speaking to you. I learned so much about every little thing from your channel. So I really
I
appreciate you,
appreciate you
Janine.
coming on. But I'm going to change the name of this broadcast though to make it a little bit, pump it up a little bit, get some more people. You know, we got to get some more people to watch this because you know, I do have some really great guests on my live streams, but
You
it's like
too.
not getting the views that the guests deserve, because you are a phenomenal guest. You have a lot of uh
Oh, you're
diff-
so kind.
different way of thinking than I would say the average person, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and you've had poets, singers, artists.
Mhm.
I mean, folks who are historians, lecturers. There's just so much value in everything they share. So yeah, I hear you. Yeah, we got to get
We
the
got to get
message
this.
out.
We got to get this up. In fact, you can send the link to your friends, because you got a lot of friends. Send that stuff out, Ruhi.
I do share. I definitely often
Yeah.
share when I get something that I know I've watched.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely share because it's so valuable, and it's so much fun to watch people grow too. Because you've had guests come on again and again a couple times, and I'm like, wow, look at them from a couple years ago, and look what they're doing now. Like that to me is so awesome. I think it's just great. You've created a wonderful space, Janine.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
I'd like to thank Ruhi again, and Wellness with Frugal Mama for joining, and whoever else came on. And if you like this interview, please share with other people, share with all your friends, and subscribe. Talk to you later. Bye bye.